All of last week, we spoke about the potential to find a major low within the market before the 11th of June, at which point we'd be looking for a bit of a turnaround within the market. So in today's show, we'll assess whether that plan is still on track. Will bulls be able to take back control? Will we get a short squeeze within the stock market, which should have a cascading effect into the crypto markets? And what are the best trade opportunities for the rest of this week? So smash the like button, hit the bell notification, and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. We're having a look at all things crypto and where the stock market's at, because ultimately that's going to be one of the main drivers for the next big move. So on the daily, a lot of the coins still pulling back over here, which is what we spoke about after we had that dip. We said expect a little bit of a push towards the upside, a rejection, price should come down, form a little bit of a high low, and then I think bulls will attempt to take back control. And that's essentially exactly what we're seeing. So we'll look at how all of these things work together, especially looking at the USDT dominance, which is giving a big indication as to what the next major move could be. And everything is going for the bulls if they can just hold price a little bit longer, right? So we'll look at that in today's show. If we look at the stock market, it's pretty interesting when you study the seasonality. We know that seasonally, the stock market usually struggles in that August-September period, but we're not there yet, right? Just before that August-September period, you tend to see quite a strong seasonal June-July. And if you look at bar charts over here, they say that the S&P 500 has only had one losing month, right, during the June-July period, going back all the way to 2016. And it's actually had zero of them during the Trump presidency. So I guess that puts the odds in favor that the bulls could possibly continue to squeeze price higher. And when you look at the stock market over here, you're really grinding up towards those all-time highs. And as per this chart, it should just be a number of days before you actually breach your head through and start to expand. And this is where you can create those blow-off top scenarios where you can really start to go parabolic, because we spoke about that last week, that most of the hedge funds were positioned short with their stop losses, of course, in the pink box over here. So as soon as price trades into that pink box, which is above that 6,000 mark, remember there's also the psychological level where a lot of traders like to psychologically short those round numbers, that being 6,000. Price is right now at 5,998, which means there will be a lot of triggers that go off over here. And when these shorts have to cover, usually that means taking the opposite side of the trade, which creates that expansion towards the upside. And we're hoping that that's going to obviously bleed through into crypto and lead into crypto expanding towards the upside as well. And that means that a lot of our other trades, which I'll update you on over here, should start to take off. Some of them already have, right? So we're also seeing the liquidity, which got a little bit shaky over the last month or so. It started to slightly curl towards the downside if you were to really zoom in over there. And now it's ticking back up. This liquidity chart is the liquidity indicator showing capital markets liquidity as a percentage of GDP. And we've seen that pretty much it marked the bottom of the 2008 great financial crisis when it started to turn up in April 2009. You had a pretty explosive move, right? It's timed all the major tops as well. When you're looking from a high time frame perspective, came all the way down, set in the bottom in May 2012, turned back up. In July 2016, set a bottom, turned back up. And then, of course, we had the top in July 2021. And when that came down, that led all the way into the bear market. And then in July 2022, marking near the bottom, right? So good thing, turning back towards the upside. Again, that creates the opportunity for that advancement through into all-time highs and price discovery. And we're already seeing a lot of the other markets in the world, you know, things like the German markets putting in parabolic moves and all-time highs. And therefore, we expect that something similar could take place. So Bitcoin did have a pretty strong weekly close. If you look over here on Coinbase, it closed green with a bit of a reversal candle over there. So a nice pin bar candle coming towards the downside, closing nice and strong towards the upside. And over the next coming weeks, we'd expect that this should start to expand. And that would lead into what could be, remember, it could be the final phase based on this triple bearish divergence that's occurring on Bitcoin. You still have some clear levels that you need to break through over here. The first line of defense is the orange line for the RSI. And then the second would be where we expect a strong major top or even a cycle top to occur when you hit the white line over here, which is going to mark that triple bearish divergence. So that still does indicate you could see some possible further upside for the market. Liquidity is still pretty low in crypto. So as we see, this is a slow moving chart. It's looking at a really high time frame, multi-month chart over here, even multi-year if you go all the way back. So this turning towards the upside will take a little bit of time to start to bring more liquidity into the crypto market. And the volumes are still pretty low, right? If we look over here, the 7-day daily exchange volume has been declining, but we want to find a base over here. If you can find a base of support above this previous low, which occurred around that $31 billion mark, where we're at right now, we're sitting at about 34 billion, right? So if you can find a base somewhere around this $32 billion mark for a 7-day daily exchange volume, that can start to shift the tides. Bulls hopefully step back in before that date that I gave you, which we said was the 11th of June, and we expect that bulls will start to take back over. So we got liquidity overhead for Ethereum. Ethereum still being one of the main focuses, but bulls really need to fight back hard in terms of bidding up ETH on the next move up. Otherwise, ETH BTC is going to start to look like it's souring once again. And we're seeing that across the board for a lot of the altcoins are still struggling against Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin leading all the moves. So ETH is one of the few that's shown even a glimmer of hope, putting in its first high. And you'd want to see ETH bulls step up in a big way to maintain that. I'll bring it into view quickly. I think I had the chart on this side. Let's just quickly see. So let's throw this into view just to quickly highlight and show you what's happening with ETH. This was meeting a little bit of a symmetrical triangle over here. That was somewhat holding, but I think right now you have to consider that's probably broken. So I'm going to view this more from a horizontal perspective, which would look something like that. You really don't want to see the ETH BTC ratio dropping below 0.02326. And if it does, you want to see it just forming wicks, pretty much like what we saw over there. You want to see ETH immediately bid up over there and then start to break through these levels and move parabolic, right? So let's quickly have a look over here. Is it possible? Of course it's possible, because if you look at the deltas right now, they are negative specifically for ETH. BTC went positive and then slowly started to drop again in the more recent hours. If you look at Solana, similar to BTC, Solana and BTC look very, very similar. SUI is positive over there. We have Sonic, which is negative, and then we have Popcat, which is also slightly positive. So the one we're focusing on over here for today is definitely still ETH as an opportunity. I'm going to show you the areas of interest for ETH. You want ETH to defend the current levels, and then that still opens up the possibility of trading all the way up to $3,000. More specifically, the yearly open at 3,300. If we look at Bitcoin and the liquidity below and above, well, right now you have at that point of control 103,900, which means you could still see a little bit of a drop there. If you do, you got about 700 Bitcoin worth of buy orders coming into play. If you spike towards the upside first, well, your range is going to be capped around that 107,000, where you have about 500 Bitcoin up for sale, right? So those are some of the levels we're looking at. Let's just check the liquidity across all the other charts. So again, ETH giving us the strongest color bands over here. Sonic also not too bad at about 42 cents. So again, all this tells you is that there is, of course, a possibility for a short squeeze. We've been looking at the total cryptocurrency market cap, total 1, 2, 3, and others, all coming into the bid zones, all with price moving up and then into a falling wedge, which is typically a bullish chart pattern. Now, I spoke about this. I said, could something like this happen where it drops down one more time? Absolutely. That's 100% a possibility, and you should be mentally prepared for that. But both bulls and bears have their time where they have the opportunity to take over. So if bears are going to drop things down like this, they would need to do it very, very, very quickly in the next couple of days. Otherwise, I believe that the pendulum will shift and bulls are going to have a chance to take back control, and they're more likely to break things towards the upside over here, right? So that is the total cryptocurrency market cap. Here is total 2. You can see still respecting that falling wedge again. This could fall down to about 1.07 trillion, still providing you an opportunity to possibly get some orders in before the next move up. We can look at total 3, showing you exactly the same thing. But remember, this could also still be the bottom. And if bears don't take control, they would have to drop this if they're going to create a new low. They need to do it in the next couple of days. Otherwise, I believe based on what the stock market is going to do, is probably going to short squeeze to new highs. And then you're going to see total 3, total 1, and total 2 doing the same thing. Here you have others also looking very, very, very similar, still maintaining price in that bid zone over there. So therefore, there is still opportunities to open up long trades if you are looking for a swing trade opportunity. Now, if the swing trade doesn't play out, then of course we'll reevaluate, and we expect that at that point price should continue to chop. But I think based on what the stock market is going to do, it's more likely that you're going to see a parabolic advancement, because we can look to the other stock markets as an indication of what's most likely to happen next. Now, it's very rare that you're going to see other markets around the world, like the UK markets, the German markets, etc., breaking out into parabolic moves without the US markets following suit. If those markets do it, the US market's likely to follow suit. We've used the other markets as a leading indicator for the last couple of years throughout this bull run, right? So pay attention to that, right? Don't forget. Therefore, these trades are still in opportune zones. Now, I've taken these trades on Saturday. They're still valid. I highly recommend, if you missed that show, literally just go back on the here onto Crypto Banter. So actually, we can just do it right now. Let's just quickly go back on Crypto Banter, go to live, and you'll see over here, this show titled "Is the Worst Over?" I covered all of the Pinex bots that are opened over there. If you want to follow along, you can't necessarily just simply click the copy button on these, because we have different position sizes. So it's really important that you more focus on the levels that are opened up the grids at. And this gives you an opportunity to automate your trading. So again, go through over there. The link is in the description below to Pinex. You can have a look over here. If you scroll through to the bottom, it says Pinex over there, the automated trading bots. And I opened a whole lot. These are the ones I've opened. So I've got, Ian, I chose the ones that I believed are still relatively strong against the USD pair and has an opportunity to expand towards the upside. And the ones that I believe, if Bitcoin dominance does break down anytime soon, you're going to see these ones most likely outperform the market, right? So ENA, Bonk, Fartcoin, Fetch AI, Ondo, we have Sonic, Sui, XRP. The ones that we had previously opened were 𝗪𝗶𝗴, Solana, so those are still there, and ETH, and these ones are up significantly. So they're currently scaling into the positions. I'm just going to click on one or two of them as an example. So for example, you can see Sonic over here, range bound, and the expectation is that if it got really bad, this thing could drop to about 26 cents, at which point we're going to buy all the way down over here. And then as soon as it moves into the red zone, it's going to be selling. So if you think of this as a risk to reward, that's what it would look like, right? Very, very favorable risk to reward. I'll just quickly draw it on the chart. If you're looking at it like that, that's essentially what we viewing as the trade opportunity over there. And all of those are there with all the buy levels. Everything is listed in the YouTube description. So please go through and familiarize yourself with that. Now, BTC on the daily time frame, you can see the Bollinger Bands are very, very, very tight. So we can actually put the Bollinger Bands on. There they are. They're squeezing. Right now, price is capped below the middle Bollinger Band level, which is coming in at about just above 106,000, call it 106,500. That is a pretty key zone. Let's just quickly check this. Daniel says the link isn't working. Which link is not working? Let us know in the comments. Let's just quickly go over here. You should be able to literally just click the link over here to Pinex. Go to click for the sign up bonus. Let's see if this is working. Let's test it. It is working. It is working. Remember, you guys can claim $1,000 sign-up bonus depending on how much you deposit, but you're getting a guaranteed $30 to $100. And then if you open up a trade over there, they're going to give you an extra $100 on top of that, which is an amazing offer from Pinex. So it should work. It all works over there. Just check it. Go back to the video on Saturday and watch it. Anyway, back onto Bitcoin over here. So Bollinger Bands are very, very tight. All this tells us is that following extreme contraction, you expect maximum expansion. So contraction leads to expansion, which means that consolidation, tight moves, tight trading ranges break, and then you expect a large move. Direction neutral could be towards the up or the downside. And this lines up exactly with what we're seeing on the 7-day daily exchange volume. If this can start to form a base, there's going to be an opportunity for another move towards the upside. But bulls, you would obviously want to see reclaim this. Now you can see, if you just simply focus on this as a chart pattern, I know a lot of people are going to be looking at this as a potential inverse head and shoulders, right? There it is, inverse head and shoulders. So if price does come down towards that just under $103,000 level, expect that people are going to be buying the dip over there. And this is what we spoke about last week. We said when this dip occurred, that expect price is going to rally towards the order block that led to the breakdown. And then you may put in a short-term pullback and a high low, which is going to lead to high prices. So if you do put in that high low, this is why we're scaling into positions if price does come down into those zones, we'll be picking it up as much as we can, expecting that as it approaches that neckline, it's going to break out. Now, again, we can just quickly go back to this. Where are the levels or the areas of interest that we just highlighted, right? You got about 700 Bitcoin situated over there at that key level, 103,900, which would effectively print you your right shoulder. So if price does drop down over there, that is going to print the right shoulder off of a very, very low volatility. That means that if it does form a high low and you can get above the neckline, when you do start to expand above the middle of the Bollinger Band, then you know the move is happening towards the upside. Of course, if you do lose this level over here, this low, that's going to be pretty significant. That's going to probably cause a lot of panic, and then you could cascade to the next lower targets. But again, I think that there's a time factor on this, right? Bears will run out of time. If they don't break price down this week, I think they're going to run out of time and bulls are going to take back over. So BTC dominant, still marching towards the upside, still looking very, very strong. We're looking for much more or much stronger signs of weakness. However, I'm pretty sure this is going to line up with one of those super fib levels. So let's just quickly test that. We'll test that theory over there, which it does, right? Typically, when you have a tight trading range, which I'm just going to mark off by the range high over there and the range low, there it is, range high and range low for the BTC dominance. In extreme cases, what you'll typically see is price will revisit all the way back to the 0.886 to the 0.786 level, which if you zoom in, you'll see is over here. So there is a chance that you might show some weakness over there. If we start to see weakness on the BTC dominance and it begins to roll over one more time, that could be a good indication that you're going to revisit all the way back to the bottom of the trading range and possibly even break below, which is a good thing, right? Good thing for altcoin. So again, to me, it makes sense to start to look for these opportunities in a very low risk fashion, like scaling in with a grid bot, right? So I think that's a good chance or good opportunity for you over there. So let's continue. Now, we spoke about the low volume and the potential for the Wyckoff distribution schematic, which I personally would prefer to see this invalidated. But again, there's a time aspect that you have to look at. As I've said multiple times in the show, we would expect that if bears were going to take control and this hypothesis were correct that you're going to go into Wyckoff distribution, well, basically, you need to see price reject this week and probably even today. And the reason that I say that is because if you do look over here, these candles are really starting to grind into the points of control. That is the yellow line over there. That's the top of the trading range. And that's where you would expect the test on low volume to occur and price should roll over. Currently, there is the makings for this to be possible because you have declining volume. The theory suggests, which we've all covered over here, is that in order to determine if supply is in control, the sellers are in control, bears are in control, what you typically need to see is you need to see price failing to reach the previous highs that were set in phase B and C off of very, very, very low volume, right? So it says over here, the test following the upthrust after distribution checks that demand level, which is the yellow line on my chart, at the higher price level, and then it occurs on low volume, right? Suggesting the absence of demand. So we're going to find out soon. We're going to find out soon in the next couple of days, possibly even today, if this does start to roll over on that low volume, then it's possible that this distribution schematic is in play. And then what do you do with your long trades? Of course, you're going to have to cut these, right? Then you're going to have to just say, you know what, bears are taking back control. They're taking the reins over here and they're going to drop this thing a lot lower. And therefore we need to exit. If they do drop it lower, remember one of your key areas that's inevitably going to lead into at least a short-term bounce, which means you don't need to panic. If your invalidation is underneath that low, in my opinion, there's no point in actually selling because you're going to hit that 96, 97K level anyway and bounce into another lower high, at which point you can probably exit below your, or you can probably exit higher than what your invalidation anyway would have been, right? So that's one chart to keep an eye out on. Remember, we spoke about similar to the stock market, the very second that you start to trade above these highs over here. So the second that that happens, you could elicit quite a big short squeeze, which is where this would be invalidated. If that short squeeze occurs with quite a large rise in trading volume, that's going to be a good indication that it's go time, right? Things are going to start to really, really rapidly appreciate. So I prefer to go in alignment with the trend, and based on the weekly close, which I'm going to bring another chart from the other side over here into view for you. Based on the weekly close, this still, if I had to side with either the bulls or the bears, gun to my head, I have to take a side. I'm going to side over here with the bulls. And that's purely because of the trend. The price is now above the 3, the 9, and the 30 MA on the 5-day time frame, and the angle towards the upside. And you had a really beautiful, strong candle close over there on the weekly, as well as on the 5-day chart. Therefore, I would side with the bulls, that the bulls are most likely going to continue price towards the upside. So right now, attempting to reclaim that pivot level, you need to get back above your range high. We did have a short trade on. You absolutely can't lose on the short trade because the stops have been moved into slight profit, and we took partial profits along the way. Price holding that 50 MA, which is a good sign, and now attempting to reclaim, of course, back above the 9 and the 18 exponential, and in a day or two, it's going to cross that towards the upside. Now, why did I open the show with saying that, by the 11th of June, we expect the bulls to take over? And it's got everything to do with the bull and bear moon. Right now, you had a bear moon, which did its job. It dropped price towards the downside. And that's why I say bears are going to ultimately run out of time, because on the 11th, we print the next bull moon. And we've just seen the success rate of this has been very, very, very accurate, right? So on Wednesday is the next bull moon. And then we expect that over that next 2-week period, bulls have the opportunity to ride the momentum towards the upside. And we expect that USDT dominance could break down back into the trading range and possibly even go much, much lower if those bulls do take control with the bull moon. So right now, in the short term, and the reason we look at the short term for the USDT dominance is because we have a very, very bullish high time frame chart pattern that's currently about to play out on the USDT dominance. Remember, USDT dominance goes down, everything explodes and goes up. USDT dominance goes up, everything else goes down in the crypto markets. And right now, yes, on the low time frame, this is still moving towards the upside. But if you do see in the coming days a little bit of a lower high that forms over here, that's probably going to be enough to drop this back into the trading range. And the implications are this, right? If you drop that back into the trading range and you start to head towards the yearly open, you do have the possibility of an absolutely enormous bear flag. You can see this is going to be a massive, massive resistance level for USDT to try and get back above. This was the consolidation that led to the next breakdown. So you had the breakdown, price held sideways, creating a bear flag. So there it was. Price came down, bear flag, dropped back towards the downside, leading into a rising wedge over here, which is a bearish chart pattern. As you approach the apex of that rising wedge, you expect it to break, and then you get further acceleration towards the downside. And you got this big pink box over here, which is going to be a major, major resistance level. And you can see the first test of that, theoretically, already rejected price. So you also have your 50 and 200 EMA, which is crossing towards the downside. 50 is below the 200, which means the bots and algos will start to kick in to short this, which means essentially they're going to be longing the rest of the market. And you expect the inverse on the other charts. Let's quickly see what Bitcoin looks like. So you expect somewhat of an inverse trade. Did my mouse just die? Let me just check that again. It did. It's fine. We switched to the mouse pad over here. So you got a bit of an inverse trade over here. There it is. What do you have? Bitcoin towards the upside, creating a bull flag into support, holding these key levels. Now, given if Bitcoin does break the 50, if it breaks this 50 over here, yes, it could come low. You could start to drop down towards targets, like we said, around that $97,000 level. And then you got massive support over here as well, around $93,000. All right, my drawings won't be so good, guys. My mouse just died, but it's okay. Okay, cool. So we got that over there. We've covered that. Let's have a look at ETH. So ETH on the 3-day time frame is holding up over here. What I like to see on ETH, I'm looking on some of the high time frames, is to assess what is happening with the money flow. The money flow is still kind of coming down over here. This is how much money is coming into the market, but it is reaching a pretty key level where previously we've started to see it turn back towards the upside. The VWAP is also starting to curl back towards the upside on the 3-day. So let's have a look at the 2-day. 2-day, you can see money flow rising. It's about across the 0 line. VWAP is rising over there, and you've had a nice reset with the momentum oscillators. RSI still remains positive in green, which is a good sign. Let's go back onto the daily, and these are all still above their 50 EMAs, right? So, okay, momentum oscillator coming down, money flow still towards the upside. VWAP is curling. Therefore, this is the reset. So you might experience a bit more chop on the daily as the money flow comes down. It could continue to curl down, find a bottom, but that doesn't mean that price has to nuke. And even if it does, this becomes a major buy the dip, but there's no guarantee that you're going to get ETH all the way back down into this demand zone, which is about $2,000. So for now, personally, I'm going to continue to hold my spot ETH. Remember, we established those positions first all the way down here at 1,500. We then took the position again around that 1,700, 1,800, and we rode the move up. So all that we're risking over here is giving up some of those profits as it comes back to break even, which I'm willing to take that risk, because the risk is that this has created a long-term consolidation and it's not going to break that. And then it's going to bull flag all the way up to the yearly open, which is our ultimate target over there for ETH. So personally, I'm still going to be holding my ETH over here, at least in spot. If it does come lower, you know what, I'll consider opening up a leverage trade over there. So 4 hour, currently below that 50 EMA, we'll reassess as well the Monday range. We need Monday to finish in order to actually evaluate this range. So I'm holding both ETH and BTC over here in this account. I've got both ETH and BTC. This is just spot, right? I'm going to margin long it if it does come into some of the key levels. For those of you that have been following along with the Femex account, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. For those of you that don't, remember there is a link in the description below. If you want to follow along, that's the account that we margin longing. You get $50 sign up bonus immediately for joining. No KYC required if you use this link, right? If you use this specific link, there's no KYC for Femex over here. So Femex uses a book, which is a good thing. A book means that the exchange doesn't trade against you in terms of their order book. So therefore, you don't get stop hunted, right? I saw in the comments before some of you have been stop hunted. So just be careful with that. All right, let's continue. What else? What else have we got? Let me know in the comments if there's anything else that you want to have a look at in terms of the TA. I did go through a lot of the TA over the course of the weekend. So you can see a lot of these coins, you know, they broke the downsloping trend lines. Now they're kind of consolidating around the range lows. So you expect that if the bulls do take control with the bull moon, these are going to be some pretty significant levels. Solana, yes, it could come a lot lower. If it doesn't get going over here, you know, you're looking at dropping down to about 120, but unlikely to be the case unless Bitcoin drops significantly. SUI, you know, still holding up over here. We gave our ultimate target at about 764 if the market does break parabolic. We have Sonic over here, which is starting to break down into this level over here. How low it will go, we're not sure, but this is the manipulation phase. Manipulation, break back into that trading range. Once it breaks back into the trading range, we consider that the deviation. And that's kind of the thesis for how we're buying into Sonic over here on the Pinex account. There it is. So I'm basically buying into that part of there, looking for the deviation and then price to possibly run higher. Casper, sure, we can have a look at Casper. I see there's a question with that. This is the way that I'm viewing Casper. You know, it's in a downtrend. Undoubtedly, you got this beautiful parallel channel holding textbook perfectly. It is coming into the mid-level. So if it's going to operate between the top part of the channel, then you expect that this level should hold. If it starts to drop below that midline, then expect that, you know, this realistically, it could drop all the way down to make new lows. So you just need to be careful of that, right? Be cognizant of that. I actually saw a tweet over here. Let me just quickly get it. I'll bring it up in a second. It was from Eric Crown. Where's that tweet? Let me just find that. Here it is. Alt BTC pairs, right? And this is currently this is the case for a lot of the alt BTC pairs, which you have to be realistic about. So a lot of them put in their first big move. You can see that's rejecting off, I believe that's probably the 200 moving average. And this is a 2-week scale. It is coming into support with those low time frame moving averages. But really, this is the area where you want to see a high low form. If it doesn't form a high low over here, there is going to be trouble. Then you're going to be looking at new lows. And these are some of the strong ones. I'll show you what some of the weak ones look like. This is Cardano. Now, this looks pretty brutal. Cardano, if it breaks below that blue line, it's going to accelerate towards new lows, rejecting off all of the moving averages, just putting in lower highs throughout in terms of the alt BTC pair or the Cardano BTC pair. And this is what you need to be cognizant and aware of if you're going to be making long-term hold decisions. You need to know these charts. ETH obviously being obliterated. We've looked at this chart a lot, but we had what looks like a reversal candle. We're recapturing some of those that first low time frame EMA. So if it can hold sideways for a little bit longer, we could get one more move towards the upside, but you don't necessarily want to go all in on these altcoins. Look at Litecoin, terrible. New lows, right? New lows on a 2-week scale. Dogecoin, holding right at that range low. If this doesn't bounce over here, Dogecoin's going to new lows. Look at Shiba Inu, new lows against Bitcoin. So the altcoin sector has been wrecked, and that's why we need to be very, very, very selective in terms of what coins we're looking at. Okay, the other thing I wanted to mention is I know a lot of people have been getting hacked. Imagine making it through a whole cycle where you stay Bitcoin heavy, only to lose it all by clicking on a strange link. Guys, I've heard the story a lot. It's absolutely terrible. Have a look at this article. This is pretty unreal. 20 crypto phishing site applications found on the Play Store. So I guess, the Play Store is probably not as well vetted as the Apple Store. Mac seems to do a much better job. Hence, I use a Mac. But have a look at this. Look at this, what it looks like, right? On the Play Store. This is a phishing site. Hyperliquid, same logo, same everything. There's 20 of them. Sushi Swap, right? This is literally what the actual applications look like, the real ones. And then you've got the same problem over here. The real ones are basically copied one for one. Malicious application impersonating a Sushi Swap wallet, and basically you get rinsed. Here's a whole lot of other ones. It's insane. Like it's the scam game is getting absolutely out of control. My 2 tips are: 1, you can go onto X, and if you ever need to do something and you need to go to, whatever, you have to go and look for Sushi Swap. Then you go over here and you look for Sushi Swap, right? Sushi Swap. Let's have a look over here. And then you want to look for the one that's verified, which is this one over here. But even this is a little bit sketchy. Sometimes they can still get around with this. So 𝗪𝗪𝗱.com, have a look at how many legit people follow. It's 169 of my followers are following this one. So chances are this is probably the correct one. Even better if it has a gold tick over here, because they pay a lot more for that. But then there's another layer of defense that you can use. In the link in the description below, you can sign up to NordVPN. Again, guys, you don't have to use NordVPN. Any VPN will do. Well, not any VPN, any of the paid versions, in my opinion. If you were to go on the Play Store, it would pop up when you click on this, and it will say malicious site. Why? Because the VPNs study the code. They look at actually what's happening over here on the application layer in the code. So it will pop up and it will say, this looks like it's most likely a nefarious site. There's a link below if you do want to sign up using that particular link. They're giving you 70% off for malware protection. All right, let's continue. Another thing that we're looking at in terms of coins and picks is 𝗧𝗪𝗔𝗟𝗘. So 𝗧𝗪𝗔𝗪𝗘, remember I spoke about the potential for Elliott wave count, where basically you've put in wave 1, you've come all the way down to wave 2. Is that close enough? I mean, guys, it's splitting hairs. This is on a meme coin. I gave this to you as the key target level. So what I missed it like marginally, what I missed the target by. Let's quickly grab the ruler over there. I literally just narrowly missed that. Obviously, I scaled in. That's a 10% move. I mean, this is like missing Bitcoin by 0.1%. I would consider that close enough. So I am going to consider that the bottom of wave 2. So that's it. I'm going to consider that the bottom of wave 2. And now this is potentially starting an uptrend. It's broken the downtrend over here. Let's just double check. Yes, it has. It's broken the downtrend over there. If we go with an aggressive downtrend, we'll change the coloring to not confuse it with the Elliott wave count. And as long as it can continue to hold above that wick over there, I think anywhere around here is pretty much the zone, the area of interest into there, right? Anywhere around there is going to be the area of interest, which could possibly lead into that wave 3 count. Now, it's going to be completely dependent on what Bitcoin does and the rest of the broader market, the total cryptocurrency market cap. If it continues up, I would expect that this is going to move pretty aggressively. And we know that wave 3 is typically the strongest wave. So therefore, anyway, at least my bags are packed. I don't know about you guys, but still pretty low market cap. 32.46 million, which is more or less where I first showed it to you. I think you could have got this down as low as like 18 million is what it dropped to when that wick hit over there. So 𝗧𝗪𝗔𝗪𝗘, still looking good. Okay, what else, guys? Let me know in the comments if there is any other coins to look at. Unfortunately, because my mouse died, my drawing capabilities are slightly limited over here. But let's just quickly have a look. Let's double check on Ondo, which is one of the other coins that we put on the Pi-Next list. So scaling in as it approaches down to the yellow line. Could it get one more spike down? Of course, it's possible. Let's see what other ones we have. Render, also holding up over there. Grass, not too much price issue over here on Grass, but you know, something could be happening over here. It could be nearing a big move because you can see this is pretty much approaching the apex of that triangle. So you expect this either to break out or break down by the time it hits that apex, which is in July, at some point in July. All right, so things are getting interesting. Things are definitely getting interesting over here. Update your Pi-Next link for the copy trade. Remember, Pablo Escobar, I can update them, but the problem is that unless you guys are trading the same size account, just go watch the show on Saturday. I explained everything. I have like $55,000 in this account. Unless you have $55,000 in the account, you theoretically won't be able to copy it one for one. For example, if you have $2,000 in the account and then you click copy, because you can go over here to the list, remember, Pi-Next, and you can click the copy the list. But yes, to answer you, we will get updated. The team need to update, and they're obviously off over the course of the weekend. If you click copy over here, it's not necessarily going to work if you only have $1,000 in your account and I opened a $10,000 position, right? So that's what you need to be careful of. All right. Cool. UK, US, you need to use a VPN. Basically, that's the answer. Of course, just like many exchanges, things are limited in certain regions. Just try use a VPN whenever you log on. Not financial advice. All right. Other than that, guys, that is it from me. Thank you so much for joining. I do appreciate each and every single one of you, and I hope you all have a good day, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers for now.